A cheerful morning, students. The Buddhist monk and the spiritual leader of Tibet, Dalai Lama says, the purpose of our lives is to be happy. Now don't get confused happiness with laziness. Doing no work, playing and resting all the time is not called happiness. The real happiness lies in finding fun in everything what we do. So I wish my students to find a fun-filled learning. In the previous class, we have learned the lesson Tsunami. It taught us the moral values, courage, resilience and compassionate. And also we have learned sentences and its kinds according to its structure. That is simple, compound and complex. Here we have our today's brainstorming question, that is, can you imagine what your city would look like if you saw it from 10,000 feet above the ground? So here in this session, we are going to talk about an airplane journey with the poet Zulfikar Ghose. So before we learn the poem, let's know about the poet. The poet Zulfikar Ghose was born on March 13, 1935 in Sialkot, India. Then it was India, now it is Pakistan. He was a Pakistani American. He was a novelist, poet and essayist. His works are primarily magical realism. Magical realism is blending fantasy, that is magic, with the real truth. In 1964, his poem The Loss of India was published. This is your second poem from your Honeydew book, Geography Lesson. So students, before I explain the poem, let me read it line by line. Listen carefully. When the jet sprang into the sky, it was clear why the city had developed the way it had. Seeing it scaled 6 inches to the mile, there seemed an inevitability about what on ground had looked haphazard, unplanned and without style when the jet sprang into the sky. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, it was clear why the country had cities where the rivers ran and why the valleys were populated. The logic of geography that land and water attracted man was clearly delineated when the jet reached 10,000 feet. When the jet rose 6 miles high, it was clear the earth was round and that it had more sea than land. But it was difficult to understand that the men on the earth found causes to hate each other, to build walls across cities and to kill. From that height, it was not clear why. Zulfikar Ghose. Students, practice reading the poem. Now let me explain stanza 1. When the jet sprang into the sky, it was clear why the city had developed the way it had. Seeing it scaled 6 inches to the mile. The first stanza of this poem, the poet describes his city. He tells us how it appears from the window of an aeroplane. He says, it is clear that the city developed just as it was necessary for the people. It even looked 6 inches from a certain height, revealing its true structure. There seemed an inevitability about what on ground had looked haphazard, unplanned and without style. So through these lines the poet explains that when he was on ground which looked unorganized and unplanned for him was unavoidable when he was in the sky, when the jet sprang into the sky. Here the poet used the poetic device refrain. Refrain means repetition of same line in a single stanza. So the first line and the last lines are repeated, so it is called refrain. Let's move on to stanza 2. When the jet reached 10,000 feet, it was clear why the country had cities where the rivers ran and why the valleys were populated. Here, the poet says the plane rises to a height of 10,000 feet now. The poet can see the logic of geography. He says that now he understands the reason why the cities were grown along the rivers and why the valleys were populated by many people. The logic of geography, that land and water attracted man, was clearly delineated when the jet reached 10,000 feet. So the poet says that when the jet reached 10,000 feet, it was clearly shown that men are attracted by land and water. That is why the cities were built along the river and the valleys were populated. Stanza 3. When the jet rose 6 miles high, it was clear the earth was round and that it had more sea than land. When the plane rises still higher 6 miles up, the earth looks round. From that height, it is clear that the earth has more sea than land. Stanza 4. But it was difficult to understand that the men on the earth found causes to hate each other, to build walls across cities, and to kill. From that height, it was not clear why. So, when he was so high, he understood so many reasons regarding the earth, but he could not understand why the men on the earth found reasons to hate each other. Why do they build walls across the cities? Here, to build walls across the cities is an imagery. It is a poetic device used to imagine. Build walls across the city is imagined to the borders across the countries. So he asks why people build borders across the countries and why do they hate, why do they fight with each other. He does not even understand when he is in the sky. Let's learn the poetic devices, students. Imagery. Imagery consists of descriptive language that can function as a way for the reader to better imagine the world of the piece of literature and also add symbolism to the work. Imagery draws on the 5 senses, namely the details of taste, touch, sight, smell and sound. So here imagery used in the poem is walls symbolize borders and cities symbolize countries. I already have shown in the last stanza of the poem, it is mentioned walls across cities. So here the wall symbolizes the border, the city symbolizes the countries. The next is alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds in a line. We know vowels and consonants, right? A, E, I, O, U are the vowels and the remaining letters are consonants. Now look at the alliteration here. In the second line, it was clear why the country, clear country, same consonant sound used in single line. Even here, why, valley, where, same consonant sound used thrice in the same line. So if the same consonant sound is used in a single line, it is called alliteration. The next poetic device used there is refrain. So in the first stanza and the second stanza, I already have shown that the first line and the last line are same. So a refrain is a line or group of lines that regularly repeat, usually at the end of the stanza in a poem. That is called refrain. So now we have learned the poetic devices, students. I hope you all have understood. Go through the poem, learn the explanation part and understand the poetic devices also. If you have any doubt, feel free to ask it. I'll explain you. Now let's learn the grammar. Subject, verb, object. This is already learnt one. We are going to recall it. What is subject, verb and object? Now look at this example. He paints poster. Now we are going to differentiate subject, verb and object. Subject is who or what performs the action. So first you have to find out the action. He paints poster. What is the action here? Paints. So who performs the action? He. So he is the subject. Paints is the verb. He paints. What he paints? A poster. So if you get answer for the question what or whom, then it is called object. So he is the subject, paints is the verb and posters is the object. Now look at the second example. The girl threw a conker. Let's identify the action. Threw. So the action is the verb. Who threw? The girl. So who performed the action is called subject. So the girl is subject. The girl threw. What the girl threw? So if you get answer for the question what, it is called object. I already said. A conker. So it is an object. Now I have given here 5 sentences. You try to find out subject, verb and object out of these sentences. First one, Daniel laid the table. Marcia counted her chocolate coins. My dad painted the fence. The children picked flowers in the meadow. The dog chewed his bone. Students, you try to do the answer in your homework notebook. Here I have given the answers for the previous sentences. So students, first let's find out the verbs in each sentence. See, verbs are mentioned in a purple color. The first sentence, laid. Second one, counted. Third one, painted. Fourth one, picked. Fifth one, chewed. So we have all selected the action words. Action words are called verbs. Now we are going to find out the subject. We already know the subject is the person or a thing who or what performs action. So laid. Who laid? Daniel laid. So Daniel is the subject. Counted. Who counted? Marcia. So Marcia is the subject. Painted. Who painted? My dad. So my dad is the subject. Picked. Who picked? The children. So the children is the subject. Chewed. Who chewed? The dog. So the dog is the subject. Now we are going to find out the object. I already have told you, you have to ask a question what or whom on the action. So if you get answer for what and whom question, then it is called object. Daniel laid. What Daniel laid? A table. So table is the subject. Marcia counted. What Marcia counted? Chocolate coins. So chocolate coins is the object. My dad painted the fence. My dad painted what? Fence. So fence is the object. The children picked. Children picked what? Flowers. It's an object. The dog chewed his bone. The dog chewed what? Bone. So if you get answer for the question what and whom, it is called object. I hope now you are clear with what is subject, verb and object. Now we are going to learn some more sentences. The baby ate the banana. Mom baked some very tasty cakes. Harry painted a picture. My teacher opened the door. I flew my kite. So these are the sentences you have to do by your own. Now we are going to learn direct and indirect object. I already have taught what is objects. Objects will answer the questions what and whom. Yes. So now we are going to learn what is direct and indirect object. See, if you get answer for the question what, it is called direct object. Our cat caught a mouse. Our cat caught what? A mouse. So if you get answer for the question what, it is called direct object. He gave the pirate a chance. He gave what? A chance. So as the word a chance give you answer for the question what, it is direct object. He gave to whom? The pirate. So it answers the question whom. If you get the answer for the question whom, it is called indirect object. Students, note it. If you get answer for the question what, it is called direct object. If you get answer for the question whom, it is called indirect object. Danny broke mom's vase. So we know Danny is the subject, broke is the verb. Danny broke what? Vase. So vase is a direct object. Danny broke whom? Do we get answer here for whom? No, we did not get answer for whom. So there is no indirect object. Now come to the second example. Dad bought mom a new vase. So dad is the subject, bought is the verb. Dad bought what? A new vase. It is a direct object. Dad bought to whom? To mom. So the answer for the question whom is mom. So mom is the indirect object. So here I have given you 5 sentences. You have to read it and find out what is direct and what are indirect objects. Write it in your homework notebook, students. So our today's class is over. Understand the grammar part clearly. If you have any doubt, ask your doubts. I will be clarifying it. Thank you, students.